Hello everybody, my name is Dr. Teresa Fernandez-Ulloa and I'm a professor at the Modern Languages and Literatures Department at the California State University, Bakersfield. The title of this paper is the use of gestures among Spanish heritage speakers in Bakersfield, California. Bakersfield is a town located in the San Joaquin Valley. More or less is 2 hours north from Los Angeles. Gestures are defined by Iverson and Tal in 1998 as actions produced with the intent to communicate and are typically expressed using fingers, hands, and arms, but can also include facial features, for example, lip smacking and body motions such as bouncing. Gestures appear very early in infancy, and for example, there's a famous study conducted by Melthoff and Moore in 1983, and this study evaluated infants 0.7 to 71 hours after birth and found that infants were able to imitate facial expressions specific to open and closing mouth and sticking their tongue out. Researchers hypothesize that this form of imitative gestures means that language will later be built. Early developing gestures have themselves deeply rooted into imitative learning. So the thing is that infants and toddlers learn gestures through observational and imitative learning, and there is also an important social interaction component that to this imitative learning that is required. So communication must be developed from human interaction. In other words, radio or TV will not develop communication that can be interpreted and used in natural context. So here, what we thought as professors of Spanish is that our students wouldn't, and usually, well, our students, most of them, they are second, they are heritage speakers or second generation Hispanic speakers, and they couldn't learn gestures from radio or TV because sometimes many of them they were watching these radio TV programs in Spanish, but really they will only come or they will only learn these gestures from human interaction. So usually they are getting them from their parents, but also they should be learning these gestures in a school because most of the time we don't really teach gestures. Also it's really important, and we are not studying here the use of gestures by Anglo speakers, but it's really important because they don't have a lot of interaction many times with Hispanic speakers, so we really need to include exercises related to gestures in our classes. Gesture is an integral part of the culture. When learning foreign languages, it is very important to understand that gestures occur more frequently in some cultures, for example, Hispanic, and not in others, for example, the Japanese. Of course, in this case, our students are between two cultures, Hispanic and Anglo-American culture, that differ. They don't differ as much as Hispanic and Japanese, for example, in terms of the use of gestures, but they differ, and Anglo speakers don't use as many gestures as we Hispanic people use. So in this case, it's important for us to teach them to Anglo speakers, but also to Hispanic heritage speakers. When we analyze the results, we basically consider, and we show in this diagram, those that were able to identify at least 8 of the 10 gestures, and there was only one participant that identified all of them. 3 identified 9 and 14 identified 8, and the results then show in this diagram. They just shown those participants that identified at least 80% of the gestures. So of those, almost 40% they were born in the USA, and 48 were not born in the USA. So this makes sense, and most of those, I mean, not most, but usually those not born in the USA are able to identify more gestures than the ones born in the USA. In the USA, of course, these gestures sometimes they are not really specific to the Hispanic culture. It's only that Hispanic culture uses more gestures than the Anglo-American culture. The results of this really humble and little study indicate, as we could imagine, that Hispanic speakers who are born outside the USA identify more gestures than those born in the USA, although these have been living in the USA for at least 10 years. We would like to mention that it's really difficult to not only to study gestures but basically to teach them, because it's not like any of some other language, like deaf language, the sign language, for example, that is codified. The gestures are not really classified. There are no repertoires that we could check, and many times interpretation depends on the situation. So that's difficult to teach. Another difficulty is the classification that we should do between those cultural signs or cultural gestures that are universal and those that are really only common to a culture. And even inside what we could call a culture as the Hispanic culture, um, uh, there may be some differences between, for example, Mexican or Spanish or people from Argentina. So it's really difficult to teach it in the in the class. And it's very useful. For example, WEDA, that is mentioned in the references page, has created this online dictionary that we can use in the class, and it contains several videos very useful for the Spanish teachers. Given the fact that when we teach a second or foreign language, we need to develop the communicative competence of the student, that is culture and interaction, teaching non-verbal language is really important to to the development of such communicative competence. And it's precisely in conversation, and that is the pragmatic level, where we find a bigger necessity of knowing non-verbal element. Yes, being able to dominate that non-verbal element means to achieve an interactive fluidity that is complete, successful, and optimal. So we are talking about communicative competence in oral language, and that is something that we tend to forget when we teach second languages. We do a lot of reading exercises, and we tend to forget the oral. Sometimes we can even teach students when we are showing them poems. That is something that we are doing these days a lot. but we fail because we teach them the grammar on those videos, but we tend to not teach all the nonverbal language. So it seems that this is a system that is more non-conscious or less important than the verbal, but that's not true, because the nonverbal systems, they really occupy 60% of the communicative act, and they have different functions, and they really depend on the context to be interpreted. So we do lots of things with them. For example, we add information, we complete or substitute the verbal language. So we really need to teach them in our classes. We really need to work more with them, and as we say, there are several problems with the gestures, and another one that we may add here is that they won't give any information to listeners that they are not trained to read them. And many times gestures are reflecting thoughts that they are not conveying in speech. So again, this is really important. So we really need to work with them in different ways.